global association is not an ideology that could sustain in an independent South Sudan. Secession should have been expressed in ideological terms. So when you talk of secession, in itself it doesn't mean anything. It must be linked to really an ideology which would now help in building up the nation, the state you were trying to build in South Sudan. That was the weakness of the political parties that led that struggle. Thus, at the height of their frustration with the oppressive regimes in the Sudan, they, at the behest of the ruling elite in Khartoum, fragmented themselves along ethnic and provincial and regional lines. It is easy to turn the oppressed people against each other and fragment them along their weakest lines. That is ethnicity. Ethnicity is not a line of strength, it's a line of weakness. It divides people into groups. Thus, instead of facing the oppressor, the oppressed turn against themselves, turn their anger against themselves. And we saw this, what happened in Juba and other parts of South Sudan in 1981-82. For the first time in the history of the people of South Sudan, they exercised self-rule in what was then called the Southern region. They exercised executive and legislative authority. But the Southern region itself was a subset of made totalitarian dictatorship. And that it was subject to all its vicissitudes, social, economic, and political crisis. It means that whatever happened, anything, the crisis that came up in Khartoum were quickly felt in Juba, because Juba was the weakest point in the system. It had, for instance, you look at the economic aspect. Juba was the most expensive town in the whole of Sudan, even though, you see, it is in a place where there are a lot of resources. But because it is linked to a regime that is oppressing people, that is marginalizing them economically, and or marginalizing them or politically excluding them, these things were felt very much easier in Juba. And that is why some of these problems that sprang up, which are weaknesses of that regime, were that the people divided themselves and formed unions, tribal unions or ethnic unions. You see, some of them, like the Dinka Unity, Luo Unity, Equatorial Union, National Action Movement, Anyanya 2, Council for the Unity of South Sudan, Equatorial Central Committee, Kokora, Upper Nile Without Board, and many other divisive slogans spread onto the political leadership. So you can see, these were actually manifestations of the crisis of the regime. And you see people turning themselves against each other. It was in this context also that the SPLM-SPLA emerged to lead a revolutionary armed struggle aimed at restructuring the Sudanese polity. The emergence of the SPLM-SPLA absorbed within itself all these contradictions and categories, but failed to transform their elements through ideological orientation and political enlightenment into a national force. What I'm saying here is that these were contradictions in the southern region, and many of them all ended up in the SPLM. So instead of the SPLM bringing them, it managed to unite them and absorb them. But because there was no political, no ideological training, no political discussion, some of these issues which we divided our people inside the so-called southern region were never discussed and problematized such that we could find solutions to them. So they remain frozen in the hearts and minds of people. Sorry. The SULM did not possess a political program to address the social, economic, and political contradictions underlying the conflict then in the country. As a result, it failed to evolve into a genuine national liberation movement. So when we speak of liberation, liberation is not about shooting the gun at the enemy. No, it is essentially, it means and entails stimulating people's mental and physical energies to transform their objective reality. In South Sudan, what do we mean by objective reality? What are the reasons for which Southerners have always taken up arms against the government in Khartoum? And I think what in simple terms, these are what we call objective reality is the abject poverty, the ignorance, superstition, and cultural backwardness of our people. In the midst of huge natural resource potential, we have huge natural resource potential in agriculture, in energy, in everything, in agriculture, all its sectors, whether you are talking about crops, you are talking about livestock, you are talking about fisheries, you are talking about forestry and all these products, they are there. But yet our people are poor. They are poor because these resources have not been developed, they have not been transformed into something they have not been transformed into economic benefits of these people. So for instance, if we say our people have cattle, this is a mainstay as cattle keepers. If somebody has 100 heads of cattle, can you characterize that person as poor? Yes, that person is poor because he lives in a house which is not really a house. He doesn't have potable water, doesn't have a school, doesn't have health service, doesn't have clothes, and so on. So he is really poor. His mind doesn't know what is going on in the world. This is the world has developed. It's a world of technology, of science and technology. They don't know this. So there's this. It means that without developing these resources, these people will remain in that situation. In this respect, poverty, ignorance, superstition, and cultural backwardness were and remain the triggers and drivers of conflict and war in South Sudan. Liberation, therefore, is a process to attain the correct perception of this reality by inculcating scientific knowledge and correct understanding on their conditions. The absence of a correct understanding of the objective reality led to emergence of false ideas and wrong practices among our people, and that all the justifications for all these false ideas. For instance, the idea that the president of South Sudan must be a Dinka because of the demographic weight of the Dinka. This That is to say, because the Dinka are the largest single group in South Sudan, the leader must always come from them. And a lot of people are talking this falsehood, especially the Young Council of Elders and other young chauvinists, and they're talking about this thing. This cannot be in a country where you have such a diversity, 64 or more ethnic communities. You cannot say that the leadership must come from that. That is already a source of conflict, a source of conflict, and it can create problems. I mean, one of them is the war we have just been in. It is a result of this kind of thinking, which must be really combated. And I think the only thing is what it is those who are against it, and especially our compatriots, the Dinka compatriots, should be in the forefront against this falsehood in order to correct it, say that we can live in a peaceful and a and harmonious country. The ideological and political failures of the SPLM led to the emergence and upsurge of ethnic nationalism in South Sudan. This ethnic nationalism, Young Council of Elders, is not peculiar to the Dinka alone. It has emerged in South Sudan. You have, among all others, you have the Shuluk, you have Oloin talking what he's talking about, you have the Nuer, you have Zande, you have the Bari. All these are ethnic nationalism. Sorry يا جماعة في interruption شوية جات يبقى قال لي في ناس ما بيعرفوا انجليزي والمشكلة انه ما بقدر اعبر النائب تعرف بالله عربي يكون مملة وبعدين اعتقد so play bear with me في اسئلة بعدين ممكن نلخبط اللي ده so let me give this let me continue with the English and because this is what I have prepared وبعد كده ممكن بعدين في أسئلة. Okay, thank you very much.
You can continue the English. Okay.
Yeah. So what I said is that the ideological and political failures of the SPLM led to the emergence and upsurge of ethnic nationalism in South Sudan. Dinka ethnic nationalism, with its ideology of hegemony and domination, became prominent because it was linked to the presidency of Salva Kiir Mayardit. The Young Council of Elders emerged as an informal ethnic structure to buttress the leadership of Salva Kiir Mayardit at a time when politics started to be organized and executed along ethnic communities. And in 2009, actually from 2005, people were appointed on the basis of their ethnicity. People appointed to parliament or to government as representatives of their communities, not as citizens and as nationals who have the right to participate in any kind of position. This couldn't have occurred under the leadership of John Garang. We know it very well. In the SPLM, there was nothing called tribe. We had one tribe called the SPLM, SPLA. But immediately he died, we started to divide ourselves along ethnic lines. The people of South Sudan are now more fragmented along ethnic lines than any other time in their history. Ethnic nationalism, therefore, is not a liberation ideology. It is an elitist ideology for capturing state power and to control the financial and economic resources of the country. This is the reason. The Jiang Council of Elders emerged as a representative of the Jiang section only that they wrought and brought destruction and pitting the Jiang sections against themselves. We saw this in Warab, in Lakes, and also the Jiang neighbors in Upper Nile between the Padang Dinka and the Nuer and Shuluk. So while our people were fighting, engaged, fighting themselves, a parasitic capitalist class evolved and emerged at the helm of the state political and economic power. It is this parasitic class. I mean, I call it parasitic because they don't control any means of production, but they derive their wealth from the state coffers through corruption and inflated government contracts. What has happened to South Sudan as a result of this thing? We have the conflict, of course, the war, which has now lasted 8 years, and this it has caused a lot of destruction, loss of life, and many people have been displaced. You have almost 3 million to 4 million people, South Sudanese, living outside South Sudan, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, and in Congo. So it means that these policies which the Jiang Council and this regime has perpetuated since 2005 has caused the erosion of social capital that used to unite our people, the people of South Sudan, and this is what enabled them to fight and resist the foreign influence, including the Khartoum government. This erosion of social capital engendered hostility and resentment that even today at the first you can see it in Juba. How people they don't see themselves as really people the common destiny. No, you see, the divisions even become very personal. That if you are a Dinka or a Nuer, for instance, looking for a house in Juba, it may be very difficult for you to get a house to rent. Why? Because you are already profiled as somebody who is an enemy or so. This kind of thing. It has created inequality in the distribution of resources and power and wealth also, which is past memory of the struggle we have led against Khartoum, because we accused Khartoum of political exclusion, of economic marginalization and neglect, and social discrimination. This is what is being practiced now. You see some people and from particular areas are really rich, you see, while the rest of the people are poor and begging. It created corruption and theft of public resources, with the consequences that there has been social and economic development in South Sudan. South Sudan now is like a kind of a vassal state. A vassal state is a state that depends on others, other countries, other powers, and if you look at it, we are like a colony of the East African countries. All the food we eat in South Sudan comes from Kenya and Uganda. All the manufactured things come from you. We don't have even a factory that is manufacturing soap, in spite of the fact that we have the material for making soap in South Sudan. So This is an aspect of this kind of thing, of lack of the failure, the political failure of the leaders. Lack of social and economic development as also it's time it creates a situation where the authority of the state and its legitimacy is weakened. Because if the state is unable to provide the minimum security for the citizen take power into their own hands. Look at what happened in Juba on the Christmas, on the eve of the New Year Eve. There were orders since I think 2018 that nobody should shoot in Juba. No fireworks, no nothing. And see what happened in Juba on the night of New Year Eve, shooting, and I'm told some one or two people died as a result of this. So it shows that if the rules, this is an aspect of the breakdown. Is this conflict and the failure of the elite to agree and implement what they've agreed has led that South Sudan has been in a kind of a perpetual transition. From 2005, we have been in this transition. The interim period, 20 of after the CPA, to 2005 to 2011. And then had the transition towards after the independence, in which we were supposed now to prepare a permanent constitution, all elections, and then but then of course the debate or what kind of system we wanted to the South to be ruled by, it just got stifled by because of the differences within the SPLM. So the political process in the SPLM got frozen, and of course the elections, the congresses, the SPLM congresses, which were supposed to be held in 2013, were postponed. The elections, which were supposed to be held in 2015, were also postponed as a result, because conflict, of course, erupted, and the situation of the civil war. Now, what happened in the interim during this time from 2015 to 20 to now? You see that the state in South Sudan has become like a shadowy state, and a shadowy state is you see where the state is used only to serve the interests of very few people, the interests of very few people, rather than the public good, of the citizens. So the lingering issue that concerns all of us as the transitional period nears its end is the completion of the complete implementation of the provisions of the revitalized agreement. Now, because you cannot, the country cannot be in continuous transition. This must end, and the end to it would have come if we are going to have elections, and as the president said, next year in 2023. But now, from now to 2023, it's just about a year. It's just about a year, and the processes that are supposed to lead towards these elections have not been started. One is the issue of the permanent constitution. We need a debate, really a big, an informed debate, really about the kind of system we want the South to be governed by. Are we going in for this presidential system, in which power can easily slip into the hands of the one individual and begin to emasculate the institutions of the state and use his powers only to dictate? Or are we going for a parliamentary democracy in which you have political parties competing for power, and you have an executive prime minister who would now be responsible to the parliament? So the party with the highest number of seats in parliament would now provide the the prime minister. But then this prime minister can be also impeached by the parliament. He comes to parliament to answer questions about his performance and the performance of his government or her government. And in that, this is the kind of system we had in the Sudan. Every time the military regime was overthrown, the people went back to the transitional constitution of the Sudan, where you have the elections and the prime minister and the parliament and so on. Or is it going to be uh, a combination of two, a mixture of presidential and parliamentary? You see, which also is practiced in some countries, some democratic countries. So these are questions which we should be discussing about whether the permanent constitution, which is, I think they might start working on that now, but whether they will finish, the debate will finish before the end of the transitional period, and people can go for election on the basis of that constitution is something which is still unknown. The other thing is that the repatriation of the refugees and the displaced people. This is important because these people need to be brought in and resettled in their areas, such that now after that the Bureau for Statistics can go and count them in what we call the population census. After which, now the electoral commission can begin to work on the consequences and then hold election. If these things are not done, it means that the transitional period will end before anything has been done, which will now create another new situation, whether this transitional period will have to be extended and for how long and who will be responsible for it. These are some of the things which people now I think should be waken up to see that these are the problems in front of us which we need to discuss, such that those in uh, the, the, the parties to the agreement can now also listen and see, make decisions based on what the people are saying. Because I think it's the most important thing in all this is that our people need to continue political political dialogue, constructive dialogue. A dialogue that really, as I said, we are able to build consensus around issues of common interest to us. Because if we don't do this, what is going to happen? Nobody in the world will come and say, no, you people, who can come and change our government the way it is. No, it is us as South Sudanese who can be able to do that. And we need to talk to our leaders such that they are able to listen and to think also politically in the interest of the people. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I will, since I've been warned that I've been talking much in English, I think I will stop here. And then maybe in the context of our answering questions or explaining some of the points, I'll be able to then more use Arabic and English and maybe Shuluk also if some of you listen to Shuluk. Thank you very much, uh, Joseph.
اوكي شكرا شريف البروف بتاعتنا بعد البرزنتيشن ده وتخليه خطة جوانب مهمة شديد من المحاضرة المفترض تغطيها الجذور التاريخية للجذور في الجنوب كيف بدأت الحركة السياسية في الجنوب كرد فعل أو ريزيستن من الحكم التركي المصري لحد الأنظمة السودانية المختلفة وكيف اسمه نظام الريزيستن ده ولد حركات مختلفة عندها طابع إقليمي، عندها طابع قبلية، عندها طابع سياسية. والحركة الشعبية كإفراز للأنشطة والريزيستن ده، لكن ما يعني بغياب الأيديولوجية السياسية الحركة الشعبية فشلت في إنها يعني تقدم طروحات للتناقضات الموجودة في المجتمع بتاع جنوب السودان بالتحديد، وبرضه يتناول الجانب اللي عنده علاقة بالنشأة القبلية أو الأيديولوجيات القومية في جنوب السودان من الدينكانيزم وكيف راس المسألة الفشل الحركة الشعبية. وبرضه يتكلم عن الأيديولوجيا اللي بتبرر السلطة السياسية زي الدين كونسل أو الدينكانيزم. يتكلم برضه عن احتياج لحوار مجتمعي عشان نقدر نصل لحلول للمشاكل اللي بيواجهها جنوب السودان. وفي الجزء الأخير هو تناول الجانب اللي عنده علاقة بالسيناريوهات بتاعت المستقبل من الانتخابات. أنا ما أعتقد كثير لو ده فرصة كثيرة للناس إنه تناقش وتسأل. ممكن نمشي الفرصة لأول المعقبين. أستاذ تيجي سكارة تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام. هاي تفضل. سلام تيجي.
إن شاء الله صوتي مسموع.
صوتك مسموع يا أستاذ تيجي، تفضل. مسموع، تفضل.
أوكي. أول حاجة بشكر إدارة بتاع جنبة للحوار بتاع الليلة الدكتور أدوك، وبرسل شكري للبروف أدوك للمحاضرة الكويسة اللي قدموا لنا، لأنه بلدنا جنوب السودان في حافة بتاعت هاوية، ومحتاج إنه الناس تتحاور عشان الناس تقدم الحلول. بس عايز أضيف نقطتين. زي ما برو بيتكلم منه الحركة السياسية في جنوب السودان كان نتاج طبيعي لمقاومة الاستعمار زي ما ذكروا، وبعد الاستقلال كلنا على علم كان في الحزب الأو Liberal Party. That was the first political party in Southern Sudan by then, and then the Federal Party. وبعدها جاء Southern Front وبعدها جاء SANU. إذا شفنا إنه النخب ديل these elites in their practice in political arena, as Professor Adwok put it clearly, these political parties can mind a clear political ideology. They gather themselves under the racism, which is the Southern nationalism, القومية الجنوبية. فالأيديولوجيا القومية الجنوبية بدأت في الخمسينات والستينات، ولو قرينا تاريخ كويس الشهيد جوزيف قرن في كتابه حلل المسألة ده وقدم رؤية. الكتاب ده هسي الأسئلة النفي جوزيف قرن لها ما لقت إجابة. وبعد أديس أبابا these elites with the power and resource they gain through the regional government of southern region that time, they formed themselves to the class which in mark system the petty bourgeois class. لأنه جماعة الأصل ما كانوا جو من الطبقة بتاع فلاحين أو رواة، وكلنا بنعرف تماما إنه البرجوازية ما بنزل من السماء. The bourgeois doesn't fall from the sky. It is the process of development in any society. So في زمن اتفاق أديس أبابا within these 10 years, the bourgeois class formed itself in South Sudan. And then they divided themselves along the ethnic line, like Bro put it very clear. لما الحركة الشعبية قامت دكتور جون قدم محاولة، لكن ملموت المساو حقه الجنوبيين دي رجعوا لساوثern nationalism. And then the Southern nationalism as a political ideology based on racism fragmented to ethnic, chauvinistic and fascist ideology headed by the Jingism. And then the Jingism also, as a result of its domination in power, الأيديولوجيا اللي كانت النايمة قامت جنراليزم، لوزم، فاريزم and equatorianism.
Can you mute your mic? Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay, خلاص. Am I clear now?
Yeah, continue.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
فيا جماعة الأزمة الصراع الموجود في جنوب السودان حاليا إذا if we look into it deeply, it is interclass conflict. It is actually a class within one class, which is الطبقة البرجوازية. لكن this class
One so together. Hello?
Yeah, وكنت تيجي عنده مشكلة في
Yeah.
يعني تيجي كان بحاول إنه يعقب على جزء من الإشكاليات بتاع الصراع الإثنية والسلطة في جنوب السودان، وكان بيحاول إنه يلخص جزء من الأفكار، ولكن شبكة بتاعه قطع. نتمنى إنه تيجي عند لسه معنا. تيجي لو لسه بنحاول ندي فنان فرصة لمداخلة بجزء إنه لو تيجي راجع ممكن برضه ندي فرصة. أستاذ فنان ممكن تتفضل.
الو اديسون سامع صوتي؟
تفضل يا استاذ فنان.
اوكي في البدايه شكرا للمنبر جنبه. بنشكر البروفيسور ادوك نيابه على الورقه اللي هو قدمه. الورقه تتناول جوانب مهمه، وخلينا ابدا بجزء من النقاط فيما يتعلق بالتكوين السياسي للحركه الشعبيه في اطار تناول الحركه السياسيه في جنوب السودان. واحد من اهم حاجات اللي كان غابت انه لو ملاحظين انه البدايه تكوين بتاع الحركه الشعبيه لتحرير السودان انه الاستقطاب كان قاعد تتم اصلا، انه كل غايه يستقطب بسنيه بتاعه عشان انه ينضم داخل الحركه الشعبيه. الو سامعني؟ الو؟
ايوه مسموع.
اوكي. فالاستقطاب قاعد يتم على اساس انه غايه نوراوي يحاول انه يستقطب نوير القائد شلكاوي يستقطب شلوك، قائد بارياوي يستقطب باريا. فالناس زي لما جو ودخلوا الحركه الشعبيه المفروض يحصل لهم عمليه بتاع اعاده انتاج داخل المشروع بتاع الحركه الشعبيه، سواء كان في اطاره الايديولوجي او في اطاره الاجتماعي والثقافي والسياسي. الحاجه ده مع مرور النضال ما حصل. فالناس جو بنفس توجهاتهم بالإثنية القاعده ويزول اللي تكتل وراء الإثنية بتاعه. الحاجه ده الناس استمر بنفس الوضع ده وما حصل معالجات للحاجه ده في اطار الايديولوجيا. فالايديولوجيه الظاهره طفى هو الايديولوجيه اللي احنا قاعدين نسموها هسه انه الايديولوجيه الاثنيه. الايديولوجيه الاثنيه ما بعد انه اللي استمروا والناس وقعوا على الاتفاقيه استمرينا بنفس المنوال، وده اللي خلق لنا الازمات. انه احنا زي ما جينا لقينا انفسنا في الدوله فاي اثنيه بقى بصاره انه يحاول انه كيف يتحصل على موارد بتاع الدوله ويستخدمهم لصالحه. فالحاجه ده قام خلق اشكاليات انه اي اثنيه بقى بصاره فالناس ما قدر انه توجه الخطاب القومي المفروض هو احنا نبني دوله، لان اصلا في الاساس الدول ما بتتبني على الاثنيات، ما في دوله يتبني على الاثنيات او على تحالف بتاع اثنيات، انما الدوله بتبني على المواطنين على اساس المواطنه. فده حاجه افتقدناه وخلق لنا الكارثه. ده بوينت. طيب بيبقى السؤال انه طالما احنا وصلنا للمرحله ده السولوشن شنو؟ هسه قدامنا فتره انتقاليه، والفتره الانتقاليه المفروض تنتهي بانتخابات وكده. الكلام اللي حصل بيحصل انه الانتخابات ما بيعمل نفسها، والقوه اللي قاعده هسه داخل جنوب السودان اللي هو بيمارس النشاط السياسي او خاتين له المسؤوليه انه يحاول انه ينقل المواطنين بتاع جنوب السودان لمرحله بتاع دوله حقيقيه. القوه ده ما جاهزه. احنا في اعتقادي انه ما ممكن القوه اللي بيعتنق الايديولوجيه الاثنيه انه ممكن يحدث تغيير في الجنوب. فبالتالي احنا محتاجين يا بروفيسور انه كلنا كناشطين وكسياسيين او كناس شغالين في مجال العام ان احنا نخلق ايديولوجيه بديله غير الايديولوجيه الاثنيه. لان انت لو ملاحظ هسه انه حتى على مستوى السوشيال ميديا ظهر اصوات، يعني اصوات افرزهم الازمه القاعده. يعني في ناس وصلت مرحله انه عايز تنفصل لانه في شايف انه الوضع القاعد داخل الدوله هو ما شايفه نفسه، لان الخطاب بقى خطاب اذني. الرد الفعل المفروض يبقى رد فعل ايجابي على اساس انه الناس تاسس لايديولوجيه حقيقيه وخطاب قومي. لكن بقى رد فعل سلبي، الناس بدات تاسس لايديولوجيات اثنيه مضاده للاثنيه اللي هم بيفتكروا انه هو مسيطر. وده كارثه ممكن نقودنا لمرحله انه الدوله يتشرذم في يدينا. فعلى المثقف الو فعلى المثقفين في جنوب السودان انه الناس تحاول تنظر للحاجات ده. ما لم يظهر خطاب ايديولوجي قومي على مستوى الساحه السياسيه بعد ذاك يحاول يعيد قراءه الواقع السياسي على مستوى جنوب السودان، احنا بنستمر في نفس الكارثه اللي اتخلق من السبعينات. لان نفس الافرازات اللي حصل في حكومه بتاع 70 الناتج بتاع فقره كان شنو؟ يعني الناس بيستغرب هسه انه ظهر الجين كانسل بالنسبه لي ما جديد. ابن ظهور تا بيسموه الايكواتوريا سنترال كوميتي برضه ده حاجه ظاهر من بدري. فاحنا محتاجين انه ننتقل بمرحله الناس تحاول تفكر انه غياب الخطاب المعتدل او الخطاب القومي على مستوى الصح والخلق الفارق ده والخلق الجوط الحاصل. فلو حاولنا انه ننظر انه في برجوازيه ظهرت بالخطاب ده، وبالحقيقه النازل ذاته يسعى يعني بيكون اعطيناه حاجه ما قدرهم انه نقول انه دير برجوازيه دي ما وصل لبنات مرحله برجوازيه الصغيره اللي احنا قاعدين نتحدث عنه. فده مداخلتي في الجزء ده. الجزء الثاني فيما يتعلق بالانتخابات والفتره الانتقاليه. الانتخابات طبعا ما ممكن يقدر انه يقام في المرحله اللي احنا عارفين، لان الترتيبات الامنيه مشت زي ما مطلوب. نمره اثنين طبعا قلت تعداد سكاني في قضايا كثار متعلق بالفتره الانتقاليه ما تم نقاشهم. فالخيار الموضوعي المفروض انه الناس تركن له او الناس تضغط عليه هو تمديد الفتره الانتقاليه، لكن ما يكون تمديد مجرد تمديد ببرامج. انه انت عايز تمدد بيفترض انك تمددها 5 سنه. نحن ما مستعجلين، دايرين ناسس لدوله. الدوله لما الناس اللي عايزه تاسس لدوله ما بتستعجل. انت بتخد برنامج انه في حاجات انت المفروض تحسم عشان انت تصل لمرحله تناقش نظام الحكم في البلد يحكموه من بيئه السيستم. نظام سياسي هل هو برلماني، هل هو رئاسي، هل هو نظام مختلط. الحاجات ده محتاج انه لا اجيبه قبل ما انه الفتره الانتقاليه تنتهي وناس تستعيد لمرحله ثانيه. اما فيما يتعلق بالتمييز الاجتماعي، طبعا التمييز الاجتماعي ده نتيجه للسياسات القاعده، السياسات الاثنيه. انا انت لما تجي هسه صعب انك تلقى لك ايجار بيقول لك يا اخي تجنجه، لكن الناس بتزعل لما نقول لك تجنجه ما بناجر لك. ما في زول سال نفسه انه ليه زول اللي قاعد يقول لك تجنجه ما بناجر لك نتيجه شنو؟ نتيجه البوليسي القاعد اللي ماخذ طابع اسمه هو النتيجه للسياسات ده خلى الواقع انه يكون زي ده. فانا في رايي بشوف انه احنا محتاجين او القوه النشطه والحيه داخل جنوب السودان محتاج انه تفرض نفسها، لان الفراغ الحاصل له في ذي القياده ايديولوجيه غير ايديولوجيه اثنيه اللي هو ايديولوجيه القوميه ما بيكون فيه حلول. وانا ممكن اجيب هنا عشان ندي فرصه للمعاقبين الثانيين لو انه يعاقبوا. فشكرا اديسون، شكرا لمنبر جنبه، شكرا لبروفيسور ادوك نيابا على الورق.
شكرا خيي. ممكن مثل شارس. شارس لو شارس ما لسه بعيد، ممكن اوليفر.
لو اوليفر ما سامع ممكن ادوارد عنده مرحب، ممكن يتفضل مداخله.
Yeah, actually, thank you, David. Thank you, Edison, and Livestock, and also thank goes to Prof. Adunyaba for the presentation. Actually, I don't have any comment. I do agree with what have been said by Prof. Adunyaba, analyzing the problems in the Republic of South Sudan since then. Just what I need to say, I came up here just because there is a piece I need to read from the book of Dr. Telemans, Peanuts, War and the Genocide in South Sudan. And I want Professor Adunyaba to make a comment on what I'm going to read here, because this one is related to the genesis of the crisis in the country, and also explaining more, as Professor Adwok was talking earlier, what actually went wrong in the country. We need to actually analyze what went wrong, and that will make it easier for all of us as South Sudanese to find an answer to the genesis of the crisis in the country, to all of us. So let me try to read the piece. It's not marketed as professor. It's very important to what you have been said earlier. لكن النقطة ده مهم جدا عشان أنا أقرأه. So أنا داير أتعلق فيه. Actually, I will read. I think Prof, you have the book, but I'm reading from the page 56, chapter 2, page 56. Let me quote and read from the book. There is two interpretation, but I'm just going to read this because this one is related to what Professor Adwok was explaining earlier when he was talking. And that one also will tell us actually what went wrong, and also how can we fix the problem in the country. Like the comment have been given earlier by my brother and Ustaz Spini. أنا عجبني تعليق بتاعك والتشخيص بتاعك يعني. أنا سعيد إنه بعد فترة طويلة جدا إنه we find ourselves together في منطقة بتاع جنب فوق هنا. اللي هي بقول الدكتورة he said quotation, another interpretation of the rift was that it was the result of the growing influence of the emerging function around Kir, what would become the JCE, and here what is the General Council of Elders, who paid by Khartoum, sought to postpone the signing of the peace agreement to delay the sharing oil revenues with the South. Signed peace agreement of 2005. Garang explicitly referred to how much Khartoum would gain from this strategy, and which is $2.5 billion. إذا كان النازل للناس العربي في الغرفة استراتيجية بتاع خرطوم في 2004 2005 إنه الحركة الشعبية تنقسم لمجموعتين عشان ما يعطل الاستفادة بتاع السودان من المواد بتاع النفط. والخرطوم كان بترى إنه ممكن تلقى من الاستراتيجية ده إذا حركة اتقسمت باستخدام الكوادر بتاع جين كانسل والناس بتاع كير. أنا باقي ده يدوا أشوفوا عشان لما نقرأ يلقوا حاجة زي $2.5 billion من العائدات بتاع النفط وتأجيل بتاع التطبيق بتاع الاتفاقية. بعد ذلك يكون في حرب في جنوب السودان بين أبناء جنوب السودان, repeating actually what happened in 1991. To him and his lawyers, one is quoted below. Khartoum sought to split again the SPLA just as in 1991 by sponsoring the future JCE function. So JCE function, and by bolstering the SSDF to question the SPLA legitimacy as an equal partner at the negotiation table. Well, the strategy of the professor also want you also to make a comment on the alliance الموجود الآن بين سكوتكيو ووكيداب, لأنه الكلام ده البروفيسور هنا quoting what happened إنه كان يكون في تعلق بين الميليشيات اللي كان موجودة في السودان وسلفاكير الفانكشن بتاع الفيوتشر JCE اللي اللي شايفينه قدامكم they become real according to what here. Just let me quote the final, but now I give the floor to Professor because it's very important also to him to analyze and make a comment on this. In Yei in 2004, there were tensions between Selfa and Garang. One lawyer was the problem between Garang and Bona Malal. And I hope also, Dr. Professor, you know who is that lawyer. The name is not mentioned, but actually I think you can also take it from there. And who was very close to Selfa. And Bona tried to mourn the pressure on Selfa. Bona Malal wanted to lead, but he didn't have any direct link with the SPLM. This was one of the factors behind the tension with Garang, Khartoum, and saw an opportunity to divide the SPLM and to scatter the peace process. They promised Salva Kiir they did conclude a peace with him, just like Riek Machar in 1991. If the SPLM is split, they would buy time. In 2004, Khartoum paid a lot of money to Sulfur Group to achieve this strategy of splitting the SPLA. They were ready to bring all the militias on board. Negotiation with Metiop, the SSDF leader, started done to make the split of the SPLA bigger and undermine the signing of the CPA and question who was the legitimate to sign the CPA and buy the time regarding oil money flowing. Question here, Doctor, I want you just to actually stop on this thing and what's happening today in country. Now we have the JCE and actually they are controlling the president like you said earlier. So what is the explanation for the South Sudanese? Because we need actually to understand South Sudan, people of South Sudan to understand what's going on is a power struggle. And we should separate the tribe in the state coming and defending the groups, the interest group actually they're working for themselves. I will stop here and I will go down there. Thank you, Edison.
شكرا إدوارد على المداخلة والكودينج الكويس اللي أنت طرحته. والدكتور طبعا هو دخل كان في عنده مشكلة في الشبكة ويقدر يجاوب النقاط اللي أنت طرحته. دكتور أنت دوب وصلت.
نعم.
دكتور. انت وصلت كان في جزء من الادوار عمل كودينج كده، فالمفروض انه انت تتجاوب عليه. كان
انا بتاعي كله الشبكه بس فجاه كده، لكن اول اللي هنا ثاني بتضايق جدا.
يس اوكي. بس كده ندي ادوار جزء من دقيقه واحده ويقرا الكودينج ده عشان تقدر تعقب عليه. Edward, please can you repeat the coding that you was reading?
Yes, thank you. Dr. actually is on the phone.
Hello, Edward, can you repeat the coding?
Yeah, David, yes, I can repeat it, but Dr. is on the phone. I can see him here, he's on the phone. So inter mumkin tadi zone lo fi zone taqib ladi ya telephone no fi telephone ana lo amata quoting you will not listen to what I'm saying.
Okay. كوال في الزمن ده ممكن ادي فرصه لكوال المداخله بتاعه برضه نشوف. يا كوال انت تفضل.
شكرا لله. انا ما اعرف لو الصوت واضح.
يا صوتك واضح بس شيل سماعه بس.
انا معي بسماعه.
اوكي تمام. صوتك واضح. اتفضل.
لو
اتفضل يا استاذ كوال.
اتكلم يا كوال.
لو
مشكله في الشبكه.
اتكلم يا كوال، اتكلم، صوتك مسموع.
اوكي شكرا للمنبر بتاع الجنبه. شكرا للمنبر بتاع الجنبه، وشكرا للدكتور بيتر ادوك. وقعدت في تقديري واحد من الليدر الناس محتاجه تستمع لها كثير because of the critical incident هو بيتميز به. فالتحليل والورقه شامله جدا ويحلل النقاط من جانب عمي خالص. ثانك يو. النقطه اللي انا كنت بس داير اعقب عليها هي حته اللي اشار فيها في انه يرجح المشكله من لانه
كوال ممكن تعمل سنة
الليل
كوال
وفي
استاذ كوال.
لما ناخد اجازه الليل ما يدق فيها.
لا استاذ كوال انسان اول سؤال. عندك مشكله في الشبكه. سوري. حاول اعمل ساين اوت، اعمل ساين ان لانه عندك مشكله في الشبكه عشان نقدر نسمعك كويس. يا ندي فرصه في انه ندي فرصه لكوال يعمل ساين اوت ساين ان. برضه نسمع يجوك. مرحبا استاذ يجوك. تفضل. استاذ يجوك. أظن أستاذ يجب لسه ما معنا، لكن ندي أستاذ أندرو. أستاذ أندرو اتفضل.
Thank you David. Can you hear me? سامعني كويس؟
صوتك واضح يا تمام.
Thank you so much David member Jamba, my good friend Edison Joseph, Professor Adwok. As always I enjoy your presentation. أنا تحديدا مش عندي تعقيب، لكن في شواهد كنت دايرك تضيف عليه. What makes your presentation different؟ إنه طبعا عندنا في المشهد السياسي لجنوب السودان الناس ميالين للسرد، يعني we always talk about أحداث لكن we don't do our due diligence to analyze what is happening يعني عشان نقدر نربط الأحداث. ف في حديثك عن المسألة بتاعت الفشل في صناعة الدولة الحديثة والانكفاء الحصل ورجوع الناس للهويات الجزئية، في 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 مشاهد داير اقف عندهم يعني ويا ريت انك توفر بعدين your opinion about what do you think why these things are happening كده يعني. لانه انا ما داير اقوم امسك بس في المشهد القايم هسه، انا اكيد داير اقوم ارجع ورا شويه، واتمنى اسمع كمان رايك في الاحداث ده وليه الحاجات دي قاعده تحصل. المشهد الاول اللي انا جيت عنده في القاهره في التسعينات، في مشهد كده حصل بين الطلبه الجنوبيين، الناس اللي انت بتعتبرهم the best of the best يعني الإليت بتاع الجنوبيين، الناس المثقفين بعد الانشغال بتاع 91 in the very place that you expect people يعني to rise to the occasion ويكون عندهم فهم مختلف. People broke down along tribal line في مصر، في اللي هو كان الرابطه بتاع سوسه، واحد من اكبر الروابط الاجتماعيه التنظيمات بتاع الطلبه في القاهره، والنتيجه بتاعه انه التنظيم كان ينهار و people broke down along tribal line. ده مشهد واحد. المشهد الثاني في جنوب السودان قبال الازمه الحاليه، قبال ما نصل ل 2013 والمآسي والاقتتال اللي حصل بعد ذاك. في 2012 في حادثه حصلت في واو، انه في مواطنين عزل يعني تم اطلاق الرصاص عليهم في مظاهره كان يمكن تكون سلميه. الكلام ده ما لقى يعني للاسف الشديد ما لقى ادانه من كل المكونات بتاع جنوب السودان. كويس، كل الناس كانت صامته يعني nobody said anything. قباله بسنه ولا سنتين انت ممكن ترجع ورا شويه بتشوف برضه المآسي اللي حصلت مثلا في المجتمع بتاع المورليه، في الحرق اللي حصل بعد 2010 في المعارك اللي دارت هناك وكده، بعد اللي هو المعارك بتاع ديفيد داوياو، الحاجات اللي حصلت هناك. المجتمع بتاع المورليه تعرض يعني للتمثيل وكان في حوادث مأساوية حصلت هناك، لكن انت بتلاحظ انه كل المجتمعات بتاع جنوب السودان كانت صامته يعني. بنجي ل 2013 برضه يعني everybody is pretending as if لو الكلام ده لو ما حصل عندي it's not a big deal. انا دايرك انت بروفيسور ادوك تتكلم وتربطه مثلا بالتكوين ذاته بتاع الفهم القومي لنا للحاجات يعني what when we talk about nationalism يعني التطور الطبيعي لنا احنا وصلنا وين في المفهوم بتاع الحاجات ده. لانه انا قاعد اشوف انه بعض مرات احنا بنمسك بس في الواقع هسه، لكن ما بنرجع ورا شويه عشان نقدر نغير نفسنا ونشوف حتى احنا ذاتنا وكنا وصلنا مرحله انه نشوف نفسنا كناس يعني. في كلام مهم كنت انت تطرقت له قبل كده في واحد من الانترفيوز بتاعك مع صحفي ما تنشرينه، انه واحد من الفشل بتاع الحركه الشعبيه انه بعد 83 84 احنا ما قعدنا تحت ويعني عالجنا المشكله بتاع الكوكورا يعني ما قعدنا وفكرنا فيه بطريقه علميه ليه حصل وهنا ممكن نتفادى النتائج بتاعه كيف يعني. فبس انا داير اقوم اجيب في الاحداث ده قبل ما نجي ل 2013 و2016 ولا بالاحداث المأساويه ده، تركيب الانسان ذاته، الانسان الجنوبي ده شكله عامل كده ليه، والاحداث دي قاعده تتكرر ليه؟ قبل ما نتكلم عن الاحداث بتاع 2013. ثانك يو.
شكرا استاذ اندرو للمداخله القيمه. انا احاول انه ندي باقي دقائق جاي بوفا يقدر يجاوب على الاسئله دي كله. وفي الفتره دي قبل الشبكه كان حصل في مشكله ما تيجي سنكارا. استاذ تيجي لو انت قاعد مداخله بتاع قبل انت ما كملته فممكن نفسي تكمل المداخله. تفضل.
ديفيد سامعني؟
يا صوتك واضح، اتفضل.
بوجه عايز الخص صراحه زي ما دكتور ادوك سرد يومين ديل يعني في صوت للايديولوجيات الارغيه خاصه في كلاب هاوس، والناس اللي بعمل اسكيليشن for these ethnic ideologies are cadres of some movement in the opposition. So في تقديري ده خطر لأنه النخب أو elites the نخب مزدوجين they have a dual speeches, a dual political speech, national speech and ethnic speech. وأي مثقف عنده خطاب مزدوج ده مثقف ما ممكن ينقذ بلده إطلاقا. فالمرة اللي فوق ده أننا في حقبة بتاع انحطاط. We are in the decay era in our history. All these values, all these ethnic and political parties based on ethnic line are the ideas of decay society. عشان نطلع من المجتمع المنحط ده نحن محتاجين إنه يكون في أفكار جديدة والناس تبتعد because النخب المزدوجة يا هو حق مين كان في سلطة والمعارضة 99% ده المعارضة همهم الأول إنه كيف يصلوا السلطة ويكونوا قريبين من خزينة الدولة. فأنا بناشد منبر بتاع فورم إنه يخصص مساحة أوسع عشان الناس تناقش جذر المشكلة بتاع إثنيات الأيديولوجية في جنوب السودان وصعوده في الحياة الاجتماعية والثقافية في جنوب السودان خاصة للمنصة الجديدة اسمها كلاب هاوس. فأنا بقيت هنا وأنا بشكر دكتور أدوك لمحاضرة حقه. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا أستاذ تيي على المداخلة القيمة. جزء من النقاط المهمة الجبال فقدناها وقدرنا نحصل عليه. في زمن ده ندي فرصة لأستاذ مايك. أنت لو قاعد أستاذ مايك.
أنا قاعد. I just want to hear from Professor Peter Adiaknyaba because he was given time, but his network was really very difficult. So let me just give him time. So I need to hear first.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. And then when the Prof come back, we will try to contact you, and then you can hear for him, and then ask him a question. Okay, في زمن ده يتيوب سيتيوب.
شكرا يا شباب. شكرا لوجودكم على الفرصه. تابعت المحاضره حقت البروف. تابعت كل محاضرة بروف أدوك شاكر ومقدر يعني مساهمته ومحاولته إنه يسلط الضوء على المسألة بتاعت العلاقة الإثنية والعلاقة الإثنية مع السياسة عموما في جنوب السودان هنا. البداية إنه أنا متابع إسهاماتهم وكتاباتهم يعني أنا بطريقة كلوز جدا. ربما واحد من الأسباب اللي خلاني مثلا إني أترجم واحدة من كتبه وهلا لسه شغال في البقية هو يعني إنه في ضرورة إنه نشارك أفكار على نطاق واسع مع الغراء والناس يقدر يفهموا إنه أفكاره شنو وموقف شنو من القضايا اللي شاغلنا حاليا. بس أنا دائما انا مشكلتي دائما مع الكلاب هاوس وما من الكلاب هاوس والحوارات في الكلاب هاوس انه هو يعني في السنس بتاعت المزايد الفايد حد ذاك. واحده من الحاجات اللي انا مزيد منه عموما كده هو يعني exaggerating the role of the council of elders in the situation we are in right now. ده واحده من قادنا انما مشكله. والثاني هو تعامل معظمنا يعني الناس طارحين انفسهم كناس كده اكتف سوشيالي بوليتيكالي يعني في اعتبار انه ما في اي حراك ماشي. انا عندي سؤالين بس سؤال واحد لبروف أدوك وسؤال واحد ممكن اجاوبه لو يزيدوا الناس المتابعين. سؤال لبروف أدوك انه يعني لما نتكلم عن الدور السلبي اللي بتلعب الايديولوجيات الاثنيه the ethnic ideology in politics in general are we just talking about the Jing ideology is spearheaded by JCE, Jing Council of Elders, ولا نحن بنتكلم عن الدور الايديولوجي السلبي اللي بيلعبوا مثلا جين كانسل اوف ايلدرز، باري كانسل اوف ايلدرز، شلو كانسل اوف ايلدرز بتاع ناس ما اعرف جونسون منو كده ما اعرف ده هناك والنوير والى الاخر. وانا اعرف انه يعني الفكره شنو من التركيز بس على الجين كانسل elders in the state في الوقت اللي انه majority of Jin يعني are literally considered to be the red sheet of the earth يعني من معذبونا actually بل من اكثر الناس يعني those who are economically deprived عديل منتهين من هذا. ده سؤال يا دكتور دوك. السؤال للمداخلين اللي بيتكلموا عن انه ما في دور ثقافي وما في دور اجتماعي، فهو انه يا اخوانا انا ما اعرف، لكن هل بجد يعني الناس اللي بيطرحوا انفسهم كانتليجنسيا وما بوليتيكال اكتيفيست في جنوب السودان هم فعلا بين الحراك السياسي والثقافي في جنوب السودان، ولا بيتكلموا بس من فراغ بس؟ لانه في الوقت اللي انه مثلا انه منابر زي في الوقت اللي انه منابر مثلا يعني زي كلوب هاوس هنا يعني بيساهموا وبطريقه كبيره وبطريقه كعبه شديد in devastating the social harmony in South Sudan هنا. They are civil activists and civic organizations شغالين بكل جديه انه يعني they are trying as much as possible انه يحاولوا بقدر الامكان انهم يبنوا ثاني ذات النسيج الاجتماعي في جنوب السودان ده. ديل بخش فيه مثلا اجسام مثلا زي بيس كامب، ده اكتيفيتي بيعملوه بعض من منظمات المجتمع المدني في جنوب السودان بهم الولايات. They are trying to break stereotypes to mitigate hate speech وما الى اخره. وفي اجسام يعني في مراكز ثقافيه في منظمات شغالين في المجال ده. فهل فعلا الناس متابعين نشاطاتهم ولا نحن بس بنتكلم بس يعني من برج عاجي كده بننتقد اي حاجه بس in a way اصلا جنوب السودان ما في ناس شغالين on the ground بينما في ناس بس بنظر بس اونلاين بس وفاكرين انه ما في غيره. ثانك يو.
ديفيد طبعا.
طيب
شكرا على المداخلة. هندي فرصة لبروف أدوم يا باشا أن يقدر يعقب على جزء من الأسئلة اللي سألوا له وجزء من المداخلات بعد الناس اللي دخلوا. تفضل يا بروف.
شكرا جزيلا. اسف انه يعني الشبكه بتاعتنا ذات بقى صار فيه مشكله وقطع كله. المداخله بتاع اندرو ما سميته. بعدين يعني الاخ الثاني فنين what is the correct pronunciation?
Pinyi.
Hello?
Pinyi.
Yeah.
Panyan, Professor.
Panyan,
Correct
okay.
pronunciation.
Yeah, sorry, it's a problem. Learn writing ma as clear as people spelling sometimes is a problem. وشكرا for كل الcontributions بتاعكم. أنا قلت قبل طبعا when we talk of ideology, here is a body of ideas which has been put together. Social, economic, political ideas, even religious ideas put together and built up into a system of which can be expressed in a program or can be dished out in a program to the people. So, and when we talk of ideology, ethnic or scientific ideology or socialist ideology, it's the same definition, yeah. I talked to the other ethnicities, they have their own ideology. Only that maybe they have not. What you see now as ethnic councils of elders these are just a reaction to the formation of the Joint Council of Elders, 2013, actually 2012. So the others started to copy as it's becoming a fashion in their champion. But it's the Jiang ideology came up because it is linked to power, it is linked to control of the state, and the building of South Sudan as in the image of the Dinka. That's why it has taken prominence in our discussion. But it came up, yeah, and my judgment for us, yeah, because there was an ideological vacuum created by the SPLM. As a liberation movement, it did not have the necessary ideological tools for combating these ethnic and sectarian ideas with which people came into the SPLM. Everybody came, as I said before, joined the SPLM, and I think Fanny really expressed it well. He articulated it well. That people came and joined in, and SPLM did not have the tools for transforming all these people into a national movement. You see, say that you could now share their the ideas they came with from their villages. Many of them who came into the SPLM did not come because they believed in the liberation. No, they came maybe in response to some local conditions. Some of them had discussed to solve with their neighbors. So they came to the SPLM in the hope that they will get weapons, they will get firearms to go and fight their neighbors and solve the problem. And this is very clear in the case of Northern Barbizal, for instance. Many of them came looking for arms to fight the Moralin. They didn't come for the liberation as such. So this is what I'm saying. So these ideas, the tendency to have ethnicity dominating in the thinking of people came as a result of this vacuum, which was created by the lack of political and ideological training within the SPLM. It is coming to the idea of the development of Southern nationalism. Yes, of course, nationalism also is an ideology. As an ideology, it needs the people who will really develop it and articulate it, and then bring it out as a product to the people. So if you look at the way with the mutiny of Torit in 1955, that was a kind of beginning that time of people now becoming aware, because any reaction, any action you do, it depends on the level of your own awareness. So if you are socially and politically unaware about what is going on, it is difficult for you to react or to take side or to develop any kind of solidarity with the others. And that is why what happened, for instance, in the South Sudan, all these things that have happened, the bad things that have happened, like what happened in WOW 2012, which people were killed, or the fighting in Murle area, in which the SPLA was used. Government forces were used to crush the people in Murle areas, and all other things that have occurred now. Why is it that people did not react? Yeah, first, I think the first thing is that First, it depends on the awareness, political awareness. For people who are politically aware, they reacted. Maybe they did not protest because they were afraid. Because the nature of this regime is that if you protest, you are shot, you are killed. And this has gone into spread fear in the hearts of people that you cannot, unless it is you who is attached to this thing directly, you'll never react. And this is what the dictatorial regimes they do throughout the world. It would need a level of awareness like what is happening in Khartoum now, that people can really now go into fire doing whatever it is because they are aware that they will still win. In the south, no. And in the south, because as if you look at our history, because of this uneven social and economic development, the South has always remained lag behind the North in terms of development of consciousness and social awareness. And that is why in such a situation, people take up the only tool they have developed and well is the tool of resistance. And I think I said it before. So we are stuck in this culture of resistance, of violence, political violence. This is only that, and people that succeed in South Sudan, you can easily mobilize people now to go and fight, but to mobilize them to go for a demonstration, for instance, a procession or a strike, it is a problem because people become afraid. It's too personal, and they easily shun this kind of activity. So really, it's a stage in our development. We are still developing. Many of us who have been in Khartoum and participated in the student movement, we know this well. But if you come to some of our people who have been in East Africa and in this area where there is really no political movement, it's difficult. They see it as plus the kind of education we got, and the influence of Christianity and the fear of the authorities. These have all combined to really prevent people from really taking action or getting organized even to take action. That's it. The other questions, I think I was able to. So the development, يعني التطور بتاع southern nationalism, it has to take stages and stages. This is now the beginning with you people. Some of us are going away from this scene, but you guys are beginning. But I think it depends more on self-education, on participating in activities, really. Because I think, and I agree with you, Adwok, that really some of us speak in these channels and this fora without really noticing or taking consideration what is going on in certain areas in the south, because there are activities going. It is true that the social civil society groups are still, in the early stages of their development. But at least there is some activity going on, and I think what we need is to really get engaged, and in fact be seen in this thing, because it is the sum total of all these activities that will really drain into this this movement for change and development of South Sudan. So in my opinion, we need to have correct definitions of what we are talking about. If you have a false definition of that, then definitely you will not really find a correct solution to it. really the issue of bourgeois or petty bourgeoisie. The petty bourgeois is a subset of the bourgeois. I don't think we have a bourgeois class, people in control of means of production in South Sudan. No. If you see most of the where they have capitalist investment are in the oil field, and these are all foreign. So it is the group, the small groups benefiting from this, what I call before the parasitic class, because they are just benefiting because of their relationship to the state as ministers, as legislators, as judges, as generals in the army and the security. This and then the business elite, who also don't have anything. Is their capital, what you call the capital is something they have derived from the state. So it's since those who have been linked to this kind of deal of corrupt deals since 2005. So really, we don't have we although from Marx's point of view, the world, of course, we are linked up to the capitalist system in the world, which is the dominant mode of production in the world. But in South Sudan, it's still we are still our economy. If you look at it, it's a appendage of the economy in the because of the linkage our parasitic group with the cartels in the region here and far afield. So really, we don't have that class who really control the means of production, and that's why we don't have a working class. Really, in the real meaning of the word in South Sudan, a working class that can really have an imprint, an impact on the structure of the state, and by their action, they can really be a leading force in the change. And that's why the change is left to those who have the power of knowledge as intellectuals, and that one is so limited. The kind of action they can take in order to change the situation is also limited because what can they do to impact on the working and the wheels and the balls and nuts of the system? They cannot. They will not be able really to impact on it in the manner that they can be changed. The way Sankara said before, no, it will not. So I think if Edward has asked a question, maybe he can repeat the question again, or another question which will come up in the course of our discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Fisheries Andrew.
نعم.
Andrew قال عنده سؤال طبعا so Fisheries قال ده يوجه السؤال مباشر ممكن عنده Fisheries.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, David.
أيوة
So what's my request?
أيوة أسمع كويس.
Okay, thank you very much, David and Livingstone and all other moderators that left now. Thinking and Maik, and of course Professor CDR Dr. Adwok Nyaba for his presentation, and those other viewers, guests here, and I'm not forgetting Addison who pinned me here, to know that there was a presentation in this room. And also I want to thank the viewers or the listeners here. This is General Charles Pearson, the leader of the SPLIO Equatorial Bloc for Equality and Justice. As all of you know, we are a separatist movement. Thank you, Professor Adwok, for your presentation, although I got it halfway. I'm proud that you refer to us Equatoria as Equatoria, as not as a tribe, because your presentation reflects on an ethnic, discussion on political power and ethnic, what maybe policies. Currently, Adwok, I believe you will agree with me, or you will agree with Carl Berger that there is an ethnocide going on in Equatorial nation. And the policy now that that has been implemented by the JCE, the Jenge Council of Elders, and the regime in Juba is trying to change the demography of the Federal Democratic Republic of Equatoria. Secondly, there was I don't know whether you listened to JCE spokesperson Aldo Ajo, when he said that when the SPLM entered Juba in 2005, they captured areas in Tongfing and around Kujur. Was there any war in Equatoria during that time when the SPLM entered? What I know that after the agreement, the SPLM entered into different parts of South Sudan. But I did not see there was a fight that resulted into the capture of Equatoria areas within Juba or Central Equatoria State. But this was the policy of land occupation that they say they captured. It is just he also alluded that the land occupations cannot be only blamed to the Dinka, but also the Cholo. He said the Luo and the Nuer should be blamed for the land occupation in a. Do you agree with his proposal that you made always an extension of the regime? I don't agree that the regime in Juba should be extended or the Artigono should be extended. It's just making a life and for some of the people in the Federal Democratic Republic of Victoria and also the in the Republic of South Sudan. So extending the elections
اخوانا الو
شارس ده بكون عنده مشكله في الشبكه ممكن نمشي لاندرو اندرو.
Yes, thank you, Edison. Professor Adwok, can you hear me? Thank you for taking the time to allow me to state my question again. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be in this gathering. Enjoy your presentation. And what I like the most about your presentation, you try to be analytical about issues, because now one of the problems is, ناس بتاعنا بقى ميالين للسرد بتاع الأحداث, and they don't take the time to analyze why things are happening. أنا قبل بس my question باختصار شديد, I wanted to see what is your take on the past.
Addison.
Charles, your network is going to let Andrew finish and then you finish your point. Andrew, continue.
Addison, okay. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, we hear your question, but the network got disturbed. So let Andrew finish and then we'll go back to you.
Okay.
Andrew, continue.
Okay, thank you again, Addison. كنت داير أقول Professor Adwok, it's always good to be listening to you because you're always analytical in your approach. أنا كنت داير أتكلم عن the way that the character of what we call the South Sudanese, and when we talk about national identity and how we interact with political events. وانا رجعت لثلاثه مشاهد عشان نجيف عندهم نشوف انه يعني هل في تصورك انه الاحداث ده عنده علاقه مع التكوين بتاع الشخصيه بتاعنا كجنوبيين and how does that influence الاحداث بتاع يوم الليله. الحاجه اللي انا وقفت فيه مثلا there was an event that took place in Egypt في 1990s بعد الانتصار بعد الانشقاق بتاع 91 انه يعني الجامعات المصريه
يتوفى كان صحته جيد جدا ما عيان ولا اي حاجه كويس. طلع وجرجع من مشواره رجع في البيت قاعد كده بس بشير اشتكى بس قال بطني وصداع. بشير بقى قاعد يعرق بعد عرق كتير ده قاعد يتوفى. انا شاركت مع الزول ده قال لي والله يا اختي انا ما اعرف في شنو قاعد يحصل في جوبا بيكون جو او بيكون هنا بتاعت الاويل ده ياهو الهواء قاعد يجيبوا بيجي ناس قاعدين يستنشقوا عشان كده الناس قاعدين يموتوا. قلت له والله تعرف انا جوا ولد خالتي اتوفى صدفه يعني الكويس انه ما شاء الله ناس البيت كلنا.
انت في نظرك مثلا لطريقه the way that we react للاحداث بتاعنا مثلا how do you gauge التطور بتاع الشخصيه بتاعت المواطن الجنوبي لما تتكلم عن national identity كده يعني. لانه انا قاعد اشوف انه الحاجات ده is very telling of how we deal with political issues today. لانه انا قاعد اشوف انه التركيز دائما قاعد يكون على انه ده مستقبل الاحداث الحاصله هسه، لكن احنا ما قاعد نحاول نرجع ورا شويه ونجيب في الاحداث ونحاول نراجعهم نشوف احنا فسرناهم كيف واستفدنا فيه كيف.
نعم. I got you Andrew. ممكن انا افتكر هي كلامك
بس يا بروفي ما يكمل سؤاله حتى نقدر يعني تجاوب عليه ممكن؟
اوكي ميك
ننتظر من قبل. ميك انت معانا؟
Thank you brother Andrew Anderson and Dr. Adwok. Actually, I did not hear the presentation, but I know the writing that he was representing. I know most of the writing from Professor Adwok is pinned out down to Gen Council of Elders for several occasions. And I've been followed up with him. I don't know what is wrong with the Gen Council of Elders. I know Adwok is one of the national leaders, but based on his writing, it pinned down to the ethnic fragmentation in the country. So let me ask him just a very simple question here. What are the basic ideological principle of Agulak forces, which is the tribal mafia that is existing in the Cholo Kingdom? What do they want to achieve, by the way? Does Gen Council of Elders contribute to the ethnic fragmentation in the country? Let me give you the example of Brother Emmanuel Jawin is watching down there. Emmanuel Jawin was one of the diplomats in the Republic of South Sudan, but when he was removed, he's now advocating hatred against one ethnic group.
Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, you can direct your question directly. Don't miss to attacking other people. This
okay, no problem. It's okay. I will just try to relate it to it actually, because this is the continuation of ethnic division in the country. So let Professor Adioka answer my two questions actually. By the way, thank you.
Yeah, Mayik, I think this thing of Agwelek, you could ask them directly because I'm not a member of Agwelek. They are forced that emerged in the Shuluk area in response to what happened in 2009. I think you should be aware of that, because when you talk about something, you should have some background of why it is there and so on. Adwok formed in 2009 as a result of a decision made by the president of the government of South Sudan, then giving the land, the east bank of the Nile, from all the way from Tonga up to the Sobat mouth, to the sections of Luach and Pawen. This was where the problem started, and that time. And of course, I think there should be some leadership in that respect. So, whatever ideology they have, I don't know. I don't think they have an ideology. The issue was a question of land, and up to now, I think they are still fighting for the issue of land, and it is still a problem that is affecting many of us who live on the east bank of the Nile. Are you listening? Hello?
Yes, I'm getting you.
Yeah. So that one I don't know. But regarding the Jiang Council, yeah, because why we attack the Jiang Council? Because they emerge as a substitute for the SPLM. You see, they organize themselves as Jiang to be able to influence policy in the country. And some of their things, in fact, precipitated the fighting in 2013. That I've made a study on that, and I've written about it clearly. So if you are condemning me for that, you should evaluate the facts which I have mentioned, how they have influenced the President Sulfur, because they did not even start as GM Council, they started as Bargazal elders, mainly from Warab and Awel. This is known, and anybody who is in Juba, who has brain, will know exactly how these people came. And it was all about resources and power. That's it.
Professor, how did you know the ideology of Gen Council of Elders?
No, but I'm a scientist. Why are we
please, don't intervene.
You see, you don't have to be a Dinka to know the German ideology. You don't have to be a German to know the German ideology. No. You see, as somebody, you can read and you can educate yourself on the development. So really, it is, as I said before, it's a negative force. It's not a force that is really helping the Dinka people in whatever. And I think somebody put it before that. Although they boast whatever Aldo Joe says in his, it is. I think he's just talking because he has not been a member of SPLM at all. What I know is that Joe was in Khartoum, has been shifting parties from Umma party to Sano to Umma to NCP and so on. So I really don't think he could have any kind of justification on behalf of the SPLM or the Dinka for that matter. Yeah. So really, there is nothing. I mean, there is no material you can get from discussing this ethnic politics. It will not take us anywhere. It won't take us anywhere at all. That's why I think, and I want to add here what Charles said about Equatorial. Equatorial is not one tribe. It's not a tribe. Equatorial is a region. It's a region, one of the regions of South Sudan. And the fact that they are lumped together as a tribe is completely wrong. It is completely wrong. Yeah, they are. The Zandis, it may be the third largest group in the south. You see, it's a large group. The Toposa also a large group. So it is Equatoria is not, but those who have been running their mouths for Equatoria are the elite, the intellectuals of Equatoria have been running, and they represent them. You see, they went to parliament, they were in the Equatoria Central Committee, they ran the Equatoria Union. And that came in a time when politics in the South Sudan were along the vicious line, because in a bad situation, in a totalitarian and a dictatorial regime, as I said before, the South Sudan, the southern region was a subset of that. So it was affected by all the crises that occurred in the Sudan, also affected South Sudan. And even worse, because at least in South Sudan, people are now divided along ethnic lines. They forgot about what has united them as a people fighting for separation of South Sudan. Now they forgot it and resorted, to this thing of dividing themselves along it, just because of power, of who is in power and which ethnic, which should be really not for intellectuals, people who are really aware, people who have been to other places, to really look at the situation in South Sudan from a different perspective, from the perspective of that we are poor because we have been our resources have not been developed. We are poor because of the things that the kind of things which the colonialists and then the different regimes in Khartoum did to us, and that's why we are in this kind of situation. And then we should be thinking of how to solve that. And that is why in some of our literature, in the last thing I talked about, the national democratic revolution as an idea, because this is exactly what we see today are expressions of these problems of this stage in our development as a people. And it is the stage every post-colonial state or a post-conflict country must pass through, in which people struggle in order to build a state and build a nation, building a state and a nation which unites all these ethnicities. Because as Professor John Lindsay said, that the Africans lived at negotiating nationalities, until colonialism turned them into competing tribes. But what does that mean? Before colonialism came, if you look at South Sudan, for instance, before the coming of the Turks and the Egyptians in 1821, you see, this issue of slavery was not even there. Our people lived and related to each other. Yeah, well, there were conflicts, but still, they still related to each other as people who are living as neighbors. The question of a state, Sudan as a state at that time did not exist. But you had states which had evolved and they were growing. If you look at the Sunday state kingdom, the Shulu kingdom, the Latuka, the system, and so on. So these people were living until the colonialism came now to instill this poison and between them and suppressed them, such that they began to compete among themselves. This is what it is. So when we really want to, I really want you people to educate ourselves about this national democratic revolution. What is it? Yes. It is the only way that can take the South Sudan out of this problem we are in, because it aims at solving the problems of poverty, the problems of ignorance, the problem of superstition. These are the things that have really submerged our consciousness. We are unable to think as people who are really free, because the consciousness of our people is really submerged in these very negative forces. So they can't see reality. They see reality as an image, as not reality. They don't see reality in its correct perspective. No. So they will explain that this is this suffering, this floods, because the gods are angry with us. No. You see, they cannot explain why some of what is happening in a scientific way. So this is what when we talk of the liberation movement, was to really free us from these negativities, But because the main trend, the main focus and the thrust of the leadership was about the issue of power, not the issue of really changing the reality by which our people have been submerged. And that is why we are still suffering. It will take a long time, need another force again in order really to turn this thing around and start building a nation in South Sudan that includes all the ethnic communities in South Sudan. Because I believe that it is through correct policies, correct and well-researched and tested policies that can really change the situation, which, as somebody said before, the ruling group cannot do it. They have no interest in doing that. Their interest is to really loot the resources which are there. And when the resources get finished or they get exhausted, they begin to fight among themselves. This is exactly what the young generation should be able to educate themselves and take up their net in order really to change this situation. And of course, the key word in this situation is organization. You need organization around very correct ideas, not the ideas which the Jain Council or the Shulu Council of Elders are spreading. We have nothing really to further the interests of our people. Because if you see the way you just said before, that you're talking about the Dinka, but the Dinka now are really the underdogs, where the wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few people. And that's why I call this state is a shadow state, because it's a state we serve the interests of very few people. It is not the majority of our people. So the Dinkas are suffering in the same way. The other tribes are suffering because it is now turned. And as I said before, that this development itself, this socio-economic and political development, is positive in that in the end the product of this development will be two ethnicities. Only two ethnicities in South Sudan. Those who have and those who do not have. And those who do not have are the majority. The majority of our people who are suffering, and the time they say enough is enough, that will be the time change, and real change will happen in South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, bro. Shara Shita, we had your question, but I think your remaining is one question. You can ask and then you go to them.
Oh, I think Charles, the question to Charles, and to me it is, I've answered it. Because he thinks that Equatoria is one tribe. Equatoria is not even a nation yet. It is like, I mean, it has the highest number of ethnic communities in South Sudan. It's not like Upper Nile, which has only about 5 ethnic communities. Equatoria, you have about 30-something ethnic communities. So you cannot, you have not even asked them, even as you say that you are talking about suppression. You are a separatist. You want to separate from the rest of the South in order to do what? You are creating another dynamic which I think will confuse people more and more. Thank you.
بعدين ممكن تفضل.
أشكركم جميعا وأشكر كمان الدكتور بروفيسور أدوك نيابة المحاضرة القيمة دي. طبعا أنا بس عايز أسأل يعني ممكن سؤالين يعني من خلال محاضرة بتاعت الدكتور من البداية يعني استنتجت إنه في جنوب السودان أصلا ما فيها أحزاب حقيقية يعني منذ يعني خمسينيات لما بدأ تكوين أول الأحزاب حتى اليوم يعني ما في أحزاب حقيقية يمكن نقول لها أحزاب حقيقية. فسؤالي هو إنه كيف مثلا في رأي الدكتور مثلا كيف يكون لنا أحزاب حقيقية؟ ده سؤال واحد. السؤال الثاني إنه القوة اللي حتقوم بالثورة الديمقراطية الوطنية الدكتور اتكلم عنها دي قوة بالذات وعشان احنا نعرف القوة دي هل موجودة في أرض الواقع ولا ما موجود ولا ما موجود احنا هنعمل شو عشان نعرف القوة دي. دي سؤالين اللي عايز أسأله.
اوكي شكرا. مبارك شارس.
Thank you. Thank you again. Aidana, itong kaso mana kwes?
هلا مبارك شارس. مبارك الفرصة مبارك.
الو الو
تفضل مبارك.
صوتي مسموع؟ الو
ايوه مسموع.
أوكي.
ايوه مسموع.
شكرا للاستاذ اديسون على اتاحه الفرصه. بجد المحاضره اللي قدمها بروفيسور بيتر أدوك محاضره قيمه ولمس الو
اتكلم.
اوكي
ايوه اتكلم بس.
اوكي. بروفيسور بيتر أدوك فتح قضايا مهمة جدا. عمل سرد تاريخي قديم وزي ما الحاجات بتاع القديم ده زي عبارة عن يعني نتاج انه نحن بدينا غلط. لكن السؤال المهم هسه نحن يعني بقينا نشوف انه التباعد بين الجنوبيين وحدة الاختلاف بقى يزيد لدرجة يعني لا يمكن تصوره. إلى ماذا سيؤدي هذا التباعد والتناحر في المستقبل القريب إذا لم يعني لم نجد حلول في يعني بدري كده. أوكي شكرا.
اوكي انكل.
All right. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to ask question to Professor Honorable Adunyaba about what he was talking about the Young Council of Elders for the engagement in politics. And what about those who have engaged in killing, like Gwelek and IO members? What is the difference between somebody who is engaged in politics and somebody who is engaged in killing? Is there any difference? That's my question. Thank you.
اوكي تنديد. شكرا.
Thank you, Edison, all the moderators and ladies and gentlemen in the room. Thank you very much for the chance. I would like to appreciate Dr. Adwok Nyaba for the great work he's doing for our people in South Sudan. I'm one of the readers who have read his work, especially his recent book, South Sudan Elites ethnicity, endless wars, and the stunted state. And I was one of the discussants who discussed the book last year. That was in April last year. And I appreciate the book because the book is full of facts. And the facts that are in the book are, I may call them rejected facts. Many people, many South Sudanese don't agree with him in many points that he discussed in the book. And the call for national democratic revolution. I have one question for him. And this question is related to religion. And he talked about this in his book. He talked about the influence of Christianity on the thinking of South Sudanese elites and the common men and women of South Sudanese. And he actually talked about this as one of the factors that cannot allow South Sudanese to wake up from their deep sleep so that they can make revolution and change the status quo in South Sudan. So I want to understand in what way exactly did Christianity affect the influence or the thinking of South Sudanese in order to make revolution? And I don't think Professor Adwok Nyaba is far away from this religious circle, because from his name, you can see his name is Peter. He should have been Adwok Nyaba without Peter. So I don't know if I got him correctly. I want him to elaborate on this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David. Jock.
Thank you, shukran jazilan. Happy New Year to all my fellow countrymen and women. Greeting to you, Professor Adwok, and thank you for your courage and your continuous production of literary work. I'll be direct. And I appreciate you answering earlier that you're a scientist, so you have an ability to analyze situations in a way that makes sense. We do have an issue. I'm one of those people who agree that we are tribal people coming from different backgrounds and in the process of forming a country or building a nation. And in order for us to do this, it's a complex process. I would like your thoughts, Professor Adwok, on our rigid stance when it comes to issues of opposing things that are not good. So particularly around the intelligentsia. Knowledge is supposed to free minds to think beyond what limits or separates us as the people. And I wonder, why are we so rigid to a point people could be suffering? And instead of us focusing, as they say, simply put, on the elephant in the room, we avoid that. So you see, I'll be direct. With myself, I'm a Jing from a BA. And I know the government has functions. And if it's not delivering and fulfilling those functions to its citizens, every citizen, regardless if the president is my father, should have a right and a clear stand in these issues. This seems to lack in our situation. What are your thoughts? Why are we so into defending our tribe when our focus should be building this nation that have taken so many of our people? I hope I've tried to put this question together, but I would assume you're getting what I'm trying to, how I'm trying to phrase this question. Was that clear to you, Professor?
I got you. Thanks. What you say?
اوكي سام جوك دين اتمنى ان الناس التانيين يكونوا قريب شويه في الكوشن لان الزمن بتاعنا ضيق ف نمشي للدين.
قصدك دين ولا دين؟
خلاص كده.
اسمي دين.
Edison, I think let me answer these ones.
Okay, that you can go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I think now it's 10 o'clock here, 10:20. But the first was about the lack of political parties in South Sudan. Of course, parties, Jama, are created by or formed by people who are politically aware, politically active, and also organized, because these are the elements of what a party should be. And you see, if you look at the history of South Sudan, where parties which were formed to address issues, the issues which were relevant that time, at that particular time. So you had the Liberal Party. If you first, before the Liberal Party was formed, Southerners, because they didn't know, they did not have the knowledge, political knowledge of or acting politically. Most of them, those who could be able to articulate issues, were members of the Northern political party. So they were members of the Ummah Party, members of the Democratic, National Democratic Party, and also the leftists were with the communists. So the real authentic party that emerged in South Sudan was the Liberal Party. And this was on the eve of independence and in the context of the elections of 57, in which the Liberal Party won the largest number of seats in South Sudan. But then the problem with the South Sudanese is that their organizations, because of they didn't have the economic or financial resources to maintain themselves. You need to have people who are really who are committed to the party and working full time for the party. They didn't have this. So most of them are government officials or students who got abroad, and like that, when situation changed, most of these parties dissolved themselves voluntarily. And this is what happened in 1958. The Liberal Party dissolved itself, and they went and formed something called Sudan African National Closed District Union. You know, from the closed district ordinance 1932. So, and this which later turned itself into SANO. And SANO, of course, after the Addis Ababa agreement, they dissolved themselves and joined the Sudan Socialist Union, which, of course, after when the NCP came, the National Islamic, they all joined up in this. So really, the parties have never been consistent, which is the nature of these intellectuals. As a class, they are not consistent. So they would always change in order, to move with the waves of time. That's why we have not. Actually, it is the SPLM which could have really evolved into a proper party with clear ideas, with a political program and an ideology of change. But this one also, it suffered the same disease as the other political parties. And SPLM now is just a hollow shell. You have people there, they are using it only for employment. And so that you get appointed to the government, either in the legislature or in the executive, and so on. So really, this is a problem in South Sudan, and of course, it links up to the issue of development of political awareness and political thinking, which is still very shallow. As we know. That's why Junubin, most of them really shun away from discussion. Yeah, now people, if you look at the trend in this, they are talking more about why this, I mean, the tribal thing, and not really the ideas behind those tribal things. So this has been our problem, and that is why no political party has emerged, because partly because of the economic difficulties many of them meet, and such that they will not they don't have cadres and leaders who can really sit down and do party work as on a permanent basis, you know, as happened in northern Sudan. Some in the North Sudan, when there is a military coup, these parties they go underground. They don't dissolve themselves. So the Communist Party has been on the surface and underground since 1946. You see, it has not changed its name. It is not. Of course, there are some of the members who left, like when I left and joined the SPLM, SPLA. But this was a response to my own thinking that the change in a country like South Sudan, part of the country like South Sudan, which is really poor, but rich in natural resource potential. The only change that can really come is from by changing the peasants and the pastoralists. You see, by transforming their means of production in order really to change their lives, in order to contribute to the development of the economy of the country. So this brings me to the question about the forces of the National Democratic Revolution. The forces of National Democratic Revolution are forces which are here. You have the intellectuals, you have the peasants, you have the cattle herders, you see, you have the workers, you have the women, the youth. These are all forces of the National Democratic Revolution. But they need organization. They need to understand their role in this respect. Say that they play their role in the transformation of the reality in which our people live. So you are not bringing forces from anywhere. It is these forces organizing themselves to participate in the change necessary that can really change the lives of our people, transform the condition, the centuries-old condition of poverty, of ignorance, of disease, and so on. So the forces are there. Some of them are aware of their role, and still organizing. In fact, the SPLM, SPLA is one of the forces of the National Democratic Revolution, because by its nature and its composition, it is one of them. But then there's an ideological shift that occurred in the 1990s, which now led the SPLM really to divert from its vision of the new Sudan, the concept and vision of the new Sudan. And that's why we are in this kind of situation we are today. It's because of this ideological shift from the revolution to neoliberalism, which would allow the SPLM to make such a, the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, when the SPLM offered to send 500 troops. How do you join the imperialist camp? And as a member of the liberation movement, as a revolutionary, how do you join the war, an imperialist war against the people of Iraq? So it is one of the real mistakes that occurred, and which I call now the ideological shift, that has really distorted the whole thing. And of course, this led to many of our people, those progressive elements in the SPLM got arrested, many of them died. Regarding the question of Aguileg and what, well, I think it is the you know, it's politics. Politics, of course, somebody who is engaged in politics and political discussion is better than somebody who is killing people. But war comes as a result of failure of politics. War is a logical, comes as a result. This is from the Marxist point of view. And as I explained before to the person who asked why Agulek took up arms, they took up arms in response to a decision which was wrong, which was ethnically based, and that's created a problem with the Shulu people in Upper Nile. Regarding the rigid stand, yes, why some of us, because also this is a problem, getting exposed to political work and political organization has been a problem for many of our people. And if you look at even some of us in the University of Khartoum, in the 70s, late 60s and 70s, you would find Junubin congregating alone in their own small groups, not participating in the national discussion. And this attitude is still very dominant among Junubin. And as somebody said regarding religion, really, it is the influence of religion. If many of us who studied in the missionary schools, the kind of education we got that time is a kind of education that does not, open your mind to question certain things. You cannot question because you are supposed to pay obedience to the authority. You cannot question whatever the leaders say, and so on. And then it actually dampens awareness, political awareness of the people. That's why most of the Junubin prefer to keep away from politics, because you are now being trained to become a civil servant, an obedient servant of the state, such that these rights, your political and civil rights, are not even considered, or you are not supposed to know them, that these are rights which you are supposed to enjoy by virtue of being a citizen of a free country. So this is where this attitude of being rigid, being more tribal, being in many cases people refuse even to accept the opposite opinion, and you don't want to accept whatever the other person wants to say, or even to consider or think about it. No, because this comes from our background, rural background, lack of exposure to the other ways of living, and then of course it affects us. That's why many of us who have gone out and they find it coming back becomes a difficult. You cannot fit into this kind of rigid environment in which ideas are so crystallized and fossilized, around certain beliefs and perceptions. But I think with time things are changing. I see that with this media like Clubhouse and other electronic platforms, people are exchanging views, and things are changing. And people who 2 years ago were not even Here you challenge the government. They are now the ones challenging and spearheading this kind of thing, which is a development, which I think is a development. And of course, it's a function of the awareness. That's why I insist that people should read and read diverse and ideas that can really make you think and open up your mind to think more critically about it. I think I believe that it will not take time. It will not take time before a critical mass evolves in South Sudan, a mass that can really challenge the reality by which they are living, and can transform it to the better. Many of you must be aware of what is happening in Rumbek. Before a year, there was no hope that a place like Rumbek or lakes generally would be peaceful. But now the situation has changed, which really is an encouragement that there are still some patriotic elements among our people who deny themselves self-denial and really reach out to the people in order to change very terrible situation like what was happening in Rumbek especially. We hope also that what is going on in Warab, in Govial and Tonj will also be changed, because when people are in this culture of violence, they don't think correctly. You see, the thinking is distorted. And we hope also in the kind of situation in Ibor and other areas where there are conflicts will also be transformed, and people can sit down and discuss issues. So, the problem, of course, is that when mistakes, serious mistakes, are committed by the state, that's where it becomes really difficult for people to control themselves, and it becomes it needs the state to really think also well in a manner that respects the rights and of community. So here, I think I'll wait for another round of questions. If I have not answered them, then I think maybe those who ask this question, they can still I don't know up to what time are we going to.
But you want to know how long we're going to stay with us so we can manage the time?
Well, it's okay. It's now 10:38. So can we say 11:30?
Okay.
Another 1 hour.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Daw.
نعم أنا موجود.
يا ممكن تمشي شنو السؤال؟ والد.
I really thanks Professor Adwok Nyaba for elaborating those issues. As we are going to the end, I will just ask the question that can make him conclude or can make him be happy to answer it while he's concluding. The issue of travel or the issue of tribalism in South Sudan, it has a long history and it's affecting people. All of us agree that nobody liked it or nobody wanted to continue. But I want to understand from Professor Adwok, from his own opinion, how can we reach solution? What kind of steps should we take so that we can prevent this country from getting separated again? Because I was hearing some voices, they're also like equatorial voices, they try to separate. So what kind of steps could South Sudanese people take so that they can avoid those kind of issues in the future? The second question, what is your message, as we have here more than 200 youths are listening to you. What is your message regarding this issue to those youths? Thank you.
Okay. Angelo Francis جاي لك بقى ده اندرو ده طالع عنده كويشن معين قبل ما يطلع. اندرو ممكن تخش في سؤالك ده قبل ما ادي فرصه لانجلو فرانسيس.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Thank you, Edison. Thank you, Professor Adwok.
Can you brief?
Yeah, I'll make it brief because I'm leaving and going back to work. I took some time off so that I can listen to you, sir. And I just wanted to get back to my point. And my point was what I was trying to get at, that South Sudanese, basically, what we are going through right now is just the fear of the unknown. Because many of our people have not met until recently. And I'm going to like one of my best friends, Omar Jok, who think of it at Abilene, our people have not met until recently in the 1980s. So basically, this is where we come from. And then, you know, when you have that and you have a failure of a state building, then you have a situation where people fall back into this Gawali Tisniya. So السؤال اللي بيطرح نفسه in this political arena right now, if political mobilization right now has become solely based on ethnicity, how does that affect what you talked about when you talk about national democratic revolution? How do you get to the point where you can create a critical mass? That's number one. Number two, this is something tied back to what Yetchuk talks about earlier. This intentional exaggeration to score political point. في ناس بيكونوا عارفين سلفا الواقع شكله عامل كيف, but then we go through this double talk. Either we define the situation as if there is what Dr. God used to call them the gun cluster, who are controlling our country. But at the same time, you have this argument that is being made that is a Dinka-driven hukuma. But at the same time, people talk about how Dinka are so impoverished and how they are in this bad situation. So the question is, which one is it? You know, how do we go about getting our people to understand that all of us, we have, how do we come together aside from these political views that are based on ethnicity? Thank you so much.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Angelo وفرانسيس.
اوكي، شكرا جزيلا للفرصة. بشكر البروف. أنا جيت متأخر joined late. But mine will be an input, not be a question. It will be brief and input. بالنسبة للinvolvement of ethnicity in the politics. This one I can say that it is there, but it's not one ethnicity. It has been there. For example, if you go back to the history, mobilization at SPLA. في ناس كانوا بيقولوا إنه ده حرب مع الجنابة. While the vision was very clear, it was not Harib Magdalaba, it was the central government in Khartoum. So it was a liberation. So that involvement came because to get the support. So when there is the war, you get involvement of different definitions so that you get the support. So that is an example of involvement of communities or ethnicities. You involve chiefs in a political process, which has nothing to do with the ethnicity in reality. برضو في سنة 91 for certain leaders to get political support برضو حصلت وانقسمت the tribes بقى war بتاعت قبيلة مع certain forces. So that example is also there from the history. لو جينا برضو نفس السيستم of mobilizing communities involved in chiefs خش برضو مع الحكومة بتاعت SPLM. If you take the example of 2013, for 2013 there were mass or a random killing. Nuer بيقتل دينكا ودينكا بيقتل نوير وتانا بيقى دينكا مشلوب. So that one created the ethnic involvement indirectly. Finas to support. Some people went there to some tribes or ethnicities to support SPLM-IO. So that one is an example also in the government. Young Council emerged. They are actually politicians, not representing tribes, because there was no organization like that. But you have in South Sudan, there are elders, council of elders for all communities, but they are for different purposes. So these politicians of young councils, at that time, because of the definition, I don't know that they supported the existence of the government, while some ethnicities tried also to support the opposition. So the opposition did not reject the ethnicities that tried to support them because they wanted support. The same thing when Young Council said that we are supporting the government of President Salva Kiir, they gave their support. So these are examples that resulted due to the war or due to political instability. So this is a reality. But the impact or the influence of these tribes, when you come to magnify the impact of Young Council, أنا بشوف في ناس قاعدين يكبروا أكثر من حجم بتاعه so that they target certain ethnicities, for example, because the government is the government. So whoever say that I support you, it doesn't mean that Zolda is the one driving the government. So that is an example also, according to involve the topic, political power and the involvement of ethnicities. Now, after the agreement, after the war, and I'm sure the circumstances change. Murphy tried Stanley Bulana, I want to support Rian Mushar or SPLM-IO. And then you have a Velega as an example also. They mobilized their ethnicities for political reasons, although the Prof said that it was because of the land. But now they negotiate and they talk about the politics, which means they involve ethnicities in politics also. And Equatoria, although it is not a tribe, but they consider themselves as assembly of tribes. As Charles said that they want to separate. They have political grievances, but they want to use their ethnicities. Otherwise, they should form a party, and they refer to themselves as a party, and they address political issues, not as a tribe, because the tribes do not agree. Or the region as Equatoria, which is composed of tribes, should not be the one talking about the political differences. For the current situations, you can see some people also that are insisting to say that the government is a government of one ethnicity, which is not true. It's a government of different parties, and these different parties now, you cannot define them as one tribe. So insisting of some politicians to talk about Young Council, and in their perception, they mean to say that there is ethnicity that is going to be dominating the government. But there is not any significant involvement of Young Council in the government after the circumstances of the war, as I said. They were not involved to replace SPLM, but they gave their support, thinking that since there is a need to support the government, that is their position. And the communities also that are involved with. Now you can get all the communities. If they get a chance, they go to SPLM office, they go to the president, they go to Waniga, and they meet and they discuss, and they give their political support. So this is an example of involvement of communities. That's not one community in politics. And it is true that poor political education and the poor education. So yeah, our societies, they have a very low level of education.
Angelo,
Yes. Yes. I'm going to conclude
can you
here.
be brief because many people are needed?
Yes.
Can you brief?
I agree that we should community should for this one to be solved, we need a political organization that are strong, that are going to be playing that role of communities instead of communities.
You finished?
Yes, I'm ahead here. Sure.
Okay, Francis and Tabata بعدك مرجع للبروف يرد.
Okay, thank you so much, Alison, for giving me this opportunity. In fact, I think I have two questions. The first questions, I think last time actually when you were hosting Kara in the discussion of Dr. Adwok book, there was something about the translation of the Monjan, which came out from that paper. So, and it was translated like Monjan is Rajanas in that book. So, I really want Professor Adwok to highlight that issue because actually it's a very controversial thing. This is the thing that I want him to address. The second thing is the critical appraisal of any published data. And I understand that the Professor work has published so many books, and for him as an author, I think that there is an instance that where he actually caught up in terms of interpreting the data, like for example, between his tendency as a human being to bias and at the same time we want to be an authentic and impartial author. So how are you as an author were able to limit the biasness as an author and then at the same time to be an impartial? The reason I'm asking this is because actually there are so many books that have been published in these days, especially the one like genocide in South Sudan by Clemens. And there he actually wrote that the Dinka nation started from in 1983. So he were an SPLM member. So were you aware that when the SPLM was established in 1983, it was an identity established the Dinka nation? Thank you so much.
Sabata, بعدك مرجع للبروف.
Okay, thank you very much. Here is my question. Dr. Adwok Nyaba, given the fact that we in South Sudan are very diverse with failed state, that is, the state institutions are not able to mitigate the interest of these diverse nationals. Do you have any hope that this country will one day become a stable state nation? Now, if your answer is yes, can you back it up with any theory, support it with any theory that exists that will also give us hope? Thank you very much.
اوكي ممكن نرجع للبروف تجاوب.
Okay, كويس شكرا. Thank you. Thank you, comrades, for those who asked the questions. I think let me start with the last one, Sabata. And of course, when you have a failed state, it means that nothing good is happening in that state. And that's why if it is a state which is made up of comprising many different socio-cultural groups, definitely a lot of things will go wrong. And This is why, in fact, things are going wrong now, and or have gone wrong. They've gone wrong in our wash. Maybe some of us were involved in that. As being in government, I was minister in both Khartoum and Juba, and by that relationship means that it was part of the whatever omission or commission that has occurred in South Sudan. So we are all responsible for it. Having said that, yes, and I think we are this discussion we are doing now is for us to see how we can improve things, how we can rectify the mistakes that have occurred. Some of them were done deliberately, some out of ignorance, and some out of greed. And of course, in a situation where democracy is stifled, definitely things are not normal, and that's why I think hope, you can generate hope, yes, from the struggle. I personally believe that nothing comes by itself. If we are going to improve, to correct this fragility, the state of fragility, and put it right, it needs a struggle. It needs a lot of efforts, intellectual and physical energy in order to do that. So hope is dependent on what you do. If you are sitting idly in your place and hoping that something will change tomorrow without the struggle, then I think that would be you'll be kind of wasting time. That hope will really be misplaced. So it needs a struggle. It needs all of us to join up, join our hands in this struggle to change the bad things that have happened in our society. Francis, regarding this thing of Monjang, it was a discussion, if you read it well, between me and late Peter, Dr. Peter Nyot, and Luca Byung, Dr. Luca Byung, and they were the ones who defined it. I define Monjang as Ujang, which we call the Mujang, which means a Dinka man or a Dinka woman. But Luca and I said, it is like the English, Monjang is like when you say Englishman. An Englishman has a lot of connotation, so it is, don't take that thing out of context. It was a discussion, and I brought it up in my book not because I want to show that I'm biased. No, it was to show the way, even to stimulate the discussion, say that we have a proper understanding about what we mean when you say you are a Monjang or Monjang. Because Monjang in Upper Nile does not exist. The Jiang and the Dinka in Upper Nile call themselves Jiang. They don't say Monjang. Monjang is in Bahr Ghazal. So if you come to Bor, you come to Ngok, you come to Paweng and so on, they call themselves Jiang. They call Jiang, Iran Jiang. Mafia just Monjang in Upper Nile. Even you go up to Abialang in the far north. They call themselves Jiang. But the thing of Monjang and this connotation of being husband of men, of others, this is only in Bahr Ghazal. And I think it is in the area of Govial and Tony. Yeah. And then, so this idea that biased, you will see it clearly in the book if I'm biased. You see, in the way I articulate, whether my reasoning is biased towards a certain ethnic community or a certain ideological group. Yeah, you'll find it there. But I don't think that I can term myself as impartial. I'm not. I'm partial. I have a political opinion, and I have a ideological orientation, which is very clear. So I cannot call myself impartial. So when I talk of national democratic revolution, it's a direction, a clear direction, an ideological direction. You cannot describe it as being biased or so on. And so this is reflected in my writing, in the way I argue out my case. Yeah, Angelo talked a lot, and yeah, it is, you know, it's really, I mean, there's a point which I really wanted to talk about, and regarding but let me link it to the first question which was raised by Andrew regarding this thing by Dow regarding tribalism, for instance. And you see, tribalism as a factor in state formation and the running of the state is something that started, you can say it started in 1972 in South Sudan with the formation of the regional government. You see, and where, of course, as I said before, it was that regime was not a perfect regime. So it has its own limitations. It has its own, depending on the people who are in it. So, for instance, when you have somebody who is a minister or somebody who is an inspector of police, for instance, and in the recruitment of people to the police, for instance, and you get 60% or 70% of those recruited into the police going to the college, say 40 of them, and 70 of them, 70% of these 40 come from one district, for instance. You see, this inequality that emerged, and it was not checked because the system was such that it relied on this kind of practices. This is where ethnicity started to really rear its head in South Sudan. It has to do with the state. It has to do with a bad state, dictatorial state, which is not, which favors some and not the others. Because basically, you go to our people, Jamal, let us be very clear here. Is there any problem between our people in the villages, a Dinka or a Bari in their villages? Do they have any problem? I don't think so. Or a Nuer and a Dinka. Nothing. Or a Shuluk and a Dinka. And that those who are neighbors, they've been there living for a long time. They didn't have problem. The problem you will get in Juba or in Malakal or in Wales, where there is a government, a bad government, a government which has been imposed on them from outside. You see? So in a situation where there is no democracy, where the things are not done in the correct way, of course you are bound to have this kind of things. And this is what happened in the SPLM when we thought that SPLM would strike a difference from the regional government in Juba during the southern region. It became even worse. You see, it became worse. If you look at the leadership of SPLM, and the manifesto, for instance, and it talks about the Anyanya being Jobis. But when the Anyanya came, it is not the Anyanya who took over the offices. It was those who were found serving the Khartoum government who really enjoyed it, who took over the offices. So really, let us, when we talk about tribalism and the practice of tribalism, which is still, as I said before, is the ideology of the intellectuals, because they exercise this transclass processes. They leave. You see, being intellectuals, they have to leave their class to come and join up with the people in order in their search for power. Not that doing anything with it, just for them to be able to maintain their position, because they run to them for elections, they run to them for any kind of support they get from the people. So it is in the context of the state that this thing of tribalism occurs. It is in the urban centers where these intellectuals interact with the masses, with the state, and create these differences and inequality among the people. That is how some of these practices, and in fact, for the aggrieved people, they organize themselves, and that's why, as I said before, these things emerge. The question of Dinka unity, for instance, it came as a result of some Dinka politicians thinking that Abel should be supported by all means. You see, they left, even they broke away from Kano, which was pursuing a definite nationalist line, South Sudan. And then, but this is where it was failed, because it was led by the people from the periphery, from the Jiang periphery. You see, and it was failed. But it created the problem later, which, of course, built up into what you call the cockroach. You see, as a result of people endorsing bad practices. For instance, you have policemen who are coming from one ethnic community, being concentrated in one place, and they behave in response to the interests of their people from that area. So this creates this creates and I see this as wrong practices because of the nature of the regime that is in power. So you cannot use it as something that can be. That's why we are struggling against it, and to see that this tribalistic attitudes and behavior are really are are, are combated. In the past, when we talk of the past, I mean, some of us who went to school in the 50s, 60s, and gone through schools with dormitories, and people learn together from different ethnic communities. This is where so I think this is how Southern nationalism started to grow among the educated Southern Sudanese, because now they started to live together, they started to know each other. You see, it is a function of this coming together. And it is now, it's actually during the SPLA that has really united people, allowed people to move from different places, and you went as a soldier or as an officer to areas where you did not know before. And then of course, people are coming to know each other, which was not there before. So I think that what is going on now, it is a difficult time, of course, difficult and mistakes being made. But I think with time, some of these things will really, they will wane away, and things will improve. The next generation, for instance, which will come next 20, 30 years, I think they will be in a better situation than some of us here. who are coming from the tribal background. You see, those of these young generations who are living in town now who have a different experience altogether from the tribal things, who have never seen the villages, they don't know them. These are the real future of South Sudan, and I think we should work hard to see that they are not, they don't, get subjected to the kind of things that are happening. And I think there is real hope that South Sudan can, future, not very far distant future, wake up really and become like other countries that are in the region and far afield. You see, the real challenge is, of course, some of us who are coming back from the diaspora who have not even they have not changed their attitude. They remain even as they were as they left, and this is a very dangerous thing because it's a terrible example for those who still be in their villages or emerging from the villages, and their thinking is still very backward and it's not helpful at all to the development and the kind of change we want in this country. I think I'll stop here.